Hello, this is Adam Jones, and today I'm going to finish my story and finally tell you what I saw when I looked at the Marfa Lights. I want to recap just a little bit because it's useful to remember the theories about the Marfa Lights. I went in having read so much about it and heard so many stories that I just had to see for myself which one of these theories seemed most likely. Now, one group of people always brings up aliens. I was never really impressed with these theories because there's no evidence, and when people insist it has to be aliens, I think they're kind of taking the easy way out. Let's do some investigation. Let's really dig into this thing and see what it is. But what's equally lazy and harmful to the conversation are all the bullies, all the people that will make fun of you for talking about the lights, people who publish real condescending articles about everyone who goes to look at these lights. That sounds like a real petty thing to do, and it is. And sadly, it's not uncommon. In fact, Texas Monthly published a very condescending article called "The Truth is Out There." A reporter went out to Marfa to look at the lights and tried to claim that everyone's just out there staring at the planet Venus. Every single person who's seen the Marfa Lights, they say, is just looking at Venus. Let me read a piece of this for you because it's interesting to see just how far people will go to make fun of somebody. This reporter says as they were waiting on the Marfa Lights, they looked up and saw a yellow light. It was glowing, it was bulbous, it was shaped like a teardrop. They said it was full of what looked like writhing snakes of fire. And then they realized it was just the planet Venus. At this point, I want to ask the good people at Texas Monthly if they're familiar with the planet Venus. If you've ever seen Venus rising in the night sky, you know that it looks like a very bright spot, like a bright star. It doesn't look like it's shaped like a teardrop, and it certainly doesn't appear to be covered in fiery snakes. That's not what Venus looks like. Not only does this reporter seem to be describing something very unlike the planet Venus, but the Marfa Lights appear in the same place in the sky every time they're seen, and it's not the place where Venus shows up. There are photographs and charts showing exactly where to look, and Venus isn't there. Venus reliably rises in a different place on the horizon. You'll find quite a few people blaming the planet Venus for the Marfa Lights, and it is the most ridiculous idea, and I think it's unhelpful. And like I said, petty to be so critical and condescending toward people. And in my opinion, to go to Marfa and to look at these lights and wonder what they are, try to figure it out, that's the scientific process. There's no reason to get on to people for doing that. It's a real shame articles like this exist because it makes people feel silly if they go out there and look at it. I think it's very appropriate to visit Marfa with a sense of childlike wonder and to go out there hoping to see something. And the good news is you will probably see something amazing if you visit Marfa. So, carrying all these theories in my head, my wife and I drove out to the Marfa Lights viewing area. It's a very nice place. It used to be that people sat on the ground to watch the lights. And what you may not know is this is rattlesnake country. Sitting on the ground out there in Marfa is not very safe, and people risk that because seeing the lights was so interesting. The viewing area they've built is very nice. There are benches, lots of places to sit. There's actually telescopes mounted along the rails, and there's very large bathrooms, lots of parking. They really want you to be comfortable, and they know how many people are out there. My wife and I visited twice, and each time there was a crowd, particularly on the Friday night, and there's always more people there on Friday, and the lights are more active on Friday, which is probably a clue about their nature, but I'll get to that. And I have to tell you, it just feels very special to sit there and be surrounded by people who are all looking at the horizon, just hoping they'll see something. It's a very special moment to have. It was a very cloudy night, and when the sun went down, for a while there was nothing in the sky. It was perfectly black. Every now and then, the clouds would move a little bit, and the starlight or the moonlight would shine through, and it was so bright. I told you light operates differently out there. It was so bright that it was like someone had flipped a light on. It's a very interesting place just to go and look, just to appreciate the beauty of nature and the beautiful countryside, and to see what it's like to watch light travel across these flat plains that go on forever. And shortly after, I saw a green haze in front of me, like a cloud. And I thought, is that it? Is that the light? And I looked at it, and it seemed to shimmer a little bit. And every now and then, shadows would cut across this green haze. It was like a little cloud of fog in front of us. And I said, I can't believe it. I'm actually seeing the Marfa Light. This is what it is. It didn't seem like the stories, but there it was, this green haze in front of me. And then I realized something embarrassing. I was looking at a shed. The wall of a metal shed. You can even pull up the Marfa Lights viewing area in Google Maps and see this shed. And see how dumb I am. I was watching the moon reflect off of this metal wall. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why is Adam explaining this mistake to us? Why is he telling us on his podcast that he accidentally looked at a reflection for this time? I'm telling you this because it demonstrates my point that light travels strange out there. I'm from the country. I've seen lots of barns at night. I've seen lots of metal sheds at night. I have never seen a Pink Floyd-style laser show happen on the side of a shed. That's something that only happens out there as far as I know. It also made me think maybe this is why the Marfa Lights aren't the same in every story. Different people describe them differently. Maybe that's because there's all sorts of things that can create unusual light effects when you're watching. Don't worry, I did see something. I realized I was staring at the wall of a shed. I felt very silly. And I stared out at the horizon, and I might not have seen the lights, except some guy said, "There they are. Is everybody looking to the right?" And I looked to the right, and I saw a bright red light in the sky. It was in the distance, and I didn't think anything of it because it looked like the kind of red light you would see on the top of a radio tower. So I ignored it, but I kept watching, and then everyone gasped because that red light moved. It was way up in the air, way above the horizon, and it moved downward and to the right in a diagonal straight line, and then disappeared. It was still high above the horizon when it disappeared from sight. Now, at this point, I wasn't convinced. That could have been a drone. It could have been a trick of the light. It could have been a lot of things. And then another one showed up. This one was white. It was in the same spot, but higher and to the left, and it moved in a diagonal line, just the same as the first one. It is the most uncannily straight diagonal line I've ever seen anything move in. Like watching something in a computer program move. It just moved in a perfect straight line and then disappeared, like the first one. Then something really weird happened. Another white light appeared. It began to travel down and to the right, same diagonal line, and then it paused. And then everyone gasped as this light became three lights. One went down and one went up along the same path. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what happened. And then all three lights, they were suspended in the air for a moment, and then they traveled further down that diagonal path, the same as the others, and disappeared. And this went on all night. Sometimes they would go up instead of down. Sometimes a light would pause, and it would split into two lights or three lights. Sometimes two or three lights would converge into one light, and they would usually stop in midair. The lights would either split apart or come together, and then they'd continue on their path, either up or down that diagonal line in the distance. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. So what could cause orbs of light to travel that way? Well, some folks at the University of Texas in Dallas decided to do a little experimenting, and this is great. Instead of making fun of people, they went and did a little proper science. They drove their cars to a distant road and drove toward the viewing area. And sometimes they would turn their lights off and on. And when they did this, it would create a Marfa light. People at the viewing area saw Marfa lights that coincided with these cars and their lights going off and on. So it appears that there's some relationship between those cars and the Marfa lights, which makes a lot of sense. It's very possible. The funny thing is, I'd heard these theories about headlights, and I assumed I might look out and see a pair of lights. When you see headlights, you see two lights. But every time we saw a light, it was by itself, one orb. And when they split, they would split into separate orbs, but they were separate from each other. They weren't close. They didn't look like headlights near each other or attached to the same vehicle. So even though I think the people at the University of Texas are onto something, I also think there's still a lot to learn. We still don't really know what's going on out there. But in my mind, I lean toward this being some sort of a mirage. It'd be nice if I could tell you that it was magic or it was aliens or it was something more incredible, and maybe there's more to this than we know. But at the moment, it appears to be some kind of a mirage. The reason I tell you that is because once you leave the Marfa Light viewing area, those lights are gone. You get to your car, you drive down the road, and you can't see the lights anymore. You can look and look and look, and you will not see them again. Only in one specific spot, looking in one direction, will you ever notice them. And there are places in the world where there are unique mirages only to that place, and I think that's what's happening in Marfa. But we still don't know what causes that. We have some ideas, we have some theories, a little bit of evidence, but still, we don't really understand it very well. So there you have it, a legitimate mystery in South Texas. If you want to take the trip, I highly recommend it. The countryside is jaw-droppingly gorgeous. The Marfa Lights are too. Of course, I didn't just go to Marfa to look at lights. While I was there, I did some hiking, mostly in Big Bend, and everything in Big Bend is gorgeous. You will appreciate the planet Earth in new ways by walking around there and just quietly looking at this amazing planet we live on. And I think that seeing the Marfa Lights is very similar. Watching those lights is just one more way of appreciating how beautiful this world is. And instead of treating it like an opportunity for an internet argument, why don't we just appreciate it? Appreciate what a great world we live in, and accept the inspiration that comes from seeing something unique and beautiful. Thanks for listening. Next week, we're back to the history books. I'm going to tell you about the 5th of November and a certain person we like to burn in effigy on that day. Some of you are going to be a little disappointed, and I am sorry in advance. Until then, this is The Lost Legends, and I'm Adam Jones.